Hello and welcome to Red Shirt Cinema Club, a weekly podcast about fandom and watching movies with friends. So far, the Alien series has delivered thrills and kills with truly extraordinary quality. So what could possibly go wrong as Alien 3 heaves into view, looking like it wants to kill off some much cared for characters before the intro credits have even finished? Let's find out.
Was there an alien on board?
Yes. There's definitely something in here with us.
We have no weapons of any kind.
Let's start.
It's here!
Hello and welcome back to Red Shirt Cinema Club. I am your host, Planetary Correctional Facility Superintendent Nathan Dighton, and I'm joined today by apocalyptic cultist Robert Pearson.
Hello.
And Rottweiler with intestinal trouble, David Jackson.
I thought I might just be a vat of melted lead, so...
I did think of pipe of insects was one of the ones.
I'll take the Rottweiler. I'll take that.
This week, we've watched Alien 3, the 1992 follow-up to the wonderfully entertaining blockbuster Aliens, and I suspect we're about to toss it into a lead furnace like the body of a narratively discarded 12-year-old. But before that, spoilers for the entire film as we shave our heads and pray to the synopsis gods, a ritual this week led by Rob. Rob, you have 90 seconds. You may not need them all.
So we begin with Ripley's escape pod, I think, from Aliens, crash landing on a mysterious planet with like a correctional facility with only men in it. And it's recovered and Ripley's alive, but Newton Hicks are dead, who cares? And immediately Ripley is brought in. She's like, oh my God, they're dead. And hello, all of you, male people, male prisoners. What's going on here then? And an autopsy is done on Newt because Ripley wants to make sure that no alien has come with them because she noticed a little acid burn on the cryosleep chamber. It seems like there's no sign inside Newt of any sort of horrible face hugger intervention. It looks like she's just tragically drowned. But unfortunately, a face hugger had somehow got on board and it's impregnated a dog. Yeah. And an alien comes out the dog and it's like got like dog qualities. It scuttles around on all fours and is quick and is a little bit smaller than the human xenomorph. It quickly starts just killing everyone in the colony, including Clemens, who I really liked. He dies about halfway through, and they come up with a big plan to try and get rid of the alien, which basically means running through some corridors, trying to put it into a place where they can tip some lead on it. Yeah. Ripley does a CAT scan on herself and finds out she's got an embryo inside her, a queen embryo, and so she's like, well, you're going to have to kill me. Once we've got rid of this xenomorph that's scuttling around here, you're going to have to kill me as well because you must promise to kill me. Please kill me. And they manage to trap the alien. They pour the lead on it, but the alien doesn't care. It jumps out of the lead, but then they put some cold water on it, and that makes it explode.
Like
then some Weyland-Yutani scientists arrive, headed up by the bishop, the human bishop, whom the android bishop was based on. Yeah. And he pleads with Ripley, please let us take you in. Please let us take this embryo. She says no, and she jumps into the furnace as the chest burster bursts out of her, and she holds it close to her like a mother cradling a child as they both are incinerated. The end.
2 minutes 20.
Oh.
So,
wow.
Not as easy as you make it sound, is it? Pretty
Dave,
good, though.
I'm going to come to you first.
I think that was a more difficult plot to synopsize.
You were excited about what happens to our heroes
Yeah.
at the end of Aliens.
And I saw all of that in the first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
That was sad. I was really sad. I must admit, I did think, how are they going to get around Newt being 6 years older when
Yeah.
filming, but the same age in universe? And the answer was to simply kill her immediately. I was sad. I was really looking forward to something, anything, just more. Even if they weren't in this film, but had somehow lived happily ever after.
picture
I
of
don't
them
know.
in Hawaii.
Exactly. And it's more than, more than them just not being there. It's just horrible and brutal. It's horrible for Ripley.
just
I was
horrible.
really struck by just how Ripley has had the worst time.
Yeah.
Ripley basically, goes to LV-426 in Aliens, barely survives by the skin of her teeth, makes some brilliant friends along the way, immediately goes to sleep, immediately wakes up, her friends are dead, and now she's on a prison planet with men who want to hurt her and another alien, and she's got an alien inside her. It's like, what a week. That's a terrible week.
Yeah, what did you think, Rob?
I didn't hate it as much as I was anticipating I would hate it, because I've seen half of this movie before.
So you knew...
And I remember turning it off after Charles Dance had died.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah,
what's the... Oh,
He's
God's sake.
like the one ray of light in a very bleak movie.
I'm bored. It's unbelievably bleak.
Yeah.
Like,
And
so
brown.
incredibly bleak and violent. Like, I mean, the Aliens is fun. Aliens is a fun
really
time.
fun.
Like, apart from the odd bit of blood, I'd probably show that to a 12 or 15-year-old.
Yeah,
like,
it's an adventure.
It's all right. This is just unbelievably miserable, an incredibly miserable film. I don't think it's a terrible film, but when it follows what's come before, it's obviously going to be judged against those two. If I'd have seen it just on its own, I'd be like, okay, that's an interesting monster movie with a strange artistic vision.
I agree.
I appreciate the artistic vision. It's probably not for me, but I didn't hate it.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Like you said, watching them in close quarters to each other does make you go, oh, what are they going to, even though I knew, what are they going to do with the family? How are they going to, what's going to be next? Oh, they're not going to have them in the movie. Who are they going to replace them with? The answer is 25 rapists.
Yeah.
What a decision for the film. And the first 20 minutes of the film, 25 minutes, like you said, everybody dies. They shave our hero's head. They cut a child up. A naked child is simply cut to pieces. They burn the bodies of the heroes of the last two films, and then a dog dies.
They explode a dog, yeah.
And then that's like, oh, that's very difficult to get on board with, I thought.
Also, the prisoners are, and this is fine, but it's just, they're not even like remorseful. No one's like, yeah, but I've learned my lesson. I'm over that. I'm a new man. I'm a different man. I've got religion now. Everyone's like, yeah, I was horrible. I'm still horrible. It's just
I live here.
I'm trying not to do it, but I would like to hurt you. Quite a lot.
Cultists.
It's horrible, and I think Rob nailed it. About it feels like a fine, maybe not even fine, standalone. It felt very straight to TV movie for me. It's not helped by some, let's be honest, terrible effects at times.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the brownness of it. I think it's the actually quite good British cast, but still
really
like
enjoyed them.
very. I'm watching a British television channel sometimes because it's just names, big names, but still very British.
Paul McGann.
Yeah, exactly. Pete Postlethwaite. But yeah, it doesn't feel like part of the series really, apart from starring one of the characters who's been in the previous two films.
I have to agree. Yeah, I think you said it all, Rob. I think I didn't hate the movie.
No.
If I'm honest, I'm enjoying it on a completely different register. If I'm honest, there is no sense of enjoyment in the same way Aliens, this completely original, genuinely suspenseful, thrilling horror. Aliens is just so fun and well paced and well judged and all the things that we spoke about. And this is just, I can appreciate it kind of, but if I'm looking for any kind of development on the things that made the other movies enjoyable, this doesn't have any of that in it for me. And I don't know what we're going to talk about for an hour.
Well, I think we could talk about some good things. There are some good things. There may be some good things.
What is your...
Just going back on that, Nath, I think you could also argue that Aliens doesn't follow up on anything that's particularly enjoyable about Alien. James Cameron's like, oh, I'll try and do this with it. David Finch has obviously tried to do something else with it, although having read up, not extensively, but I don't think you need to read extensively on the development of Alien 3 to realise it nearly made David Fincher just quit making movies altogether. And I think he was 30 when this film came out. So incredibly young to be creatively in charge of what by this stage is going to be probably as big as it gets when it comes to a big sci-fi franchise.
Yeah, for sure.
Trying to direct someone in Sigourney Weaver who by that stage I imagine has a lot of star power.
Yeah.
Trying to wrangle the interference from the studio. I mean, I can't imagine. He must have been 28, 29 when he was actually making it.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
How incredibly difficult that must have been.
Yeah, I think Sigourney Weaver supported him, and I think it's an interesting thing that she seems to be as happy to deviate from what a mainstream audience might want from Alien as anybody else. And to your point, Dave, I think that she was keen to kill off Ripley, one, because I think she didn't want to do Alien versus Predator, or thought that whole thing was awful and saw it coming down the track. But another reason, just to free up the franchise from Ripley needing to be Ripley. And she said, like, it's ridiculous. She wakes up and there are aliens running around.
Yeah.
And
she tells everyone, people don't necessarily believe her.
And then what can you do in that context? I would say that we spoke about it last week, Rob. I think that I don't want to come in swinging and smashing this movie up or the people who made it or anything. And yeah, if you read it, I think they started without a script, and one of them where I think they just ran out of runway to get something cohesive together, and then by that point they were in the movie. And I think that probably partly accounts for why the studio was leaning over so much, having give a young exciting director this movie and then you just interfere with it the whole time. But I still think Aliens did something. Maybe it's just a matter of whether it comes off or not. But Aliens, it took the alien and it just placed it in a different context that was equally as fun and exciting.
Yeah.
And I don't think this even is it even trying to do this. It's difficult to tell. Maybe it doesn't even matter. There are things that I like about it. You said Charles Dance is great, isn't it? Let's talk about Charles Dance. He was great. He was very good.
He dies even earlier than I remember.
Yeah,
and that was a scene I did think was particularly good. I think if there's one thing this movie does well, it is we're going back to the horror of a single alien in quite a confined space, and it could be anywhere at any time. But in Alien, you felt like the room with Mother was safe. Like, oh, they're safe in here. It's not going to get them in here. And I did think the infirmary was safe as well. Oh, this is just a bit where, it's going to be a little tender scene here between
the lights are on.
Charles Dance's character and Ripley. And he's telling her a little bit about his backstory, getting a little bit emotional about it.
Yeah.
And you just see a movement behind the curtain, and you're like, no, that's not going to be the alien. And it is. It's just the alien who's killed Charles Dance. And there are quite a few instances in the film where the alien is just hunting someone, and you see like a little glimpse of it in the background. Then you have to do a little double take. Wait, was that it? And yes, it was it. And I think those shots are quite effective when you compare them to the, as you said, Dave, really dreadful CG shots of it scuttling around. With just colour correct it, for Christ's sake. Like sometimes it's just on the ceiling and it's just green.
Yeah.
There's been no attempt to actually colour correct it with any regards to the actual lighting around it. Just leave it in the suit. Just leave it when it's a man in a suit. It's all right, and when there's a close up of its mouth, fine. But it looks like two completely different aliens as well. Sorry, we've gone off from Charles Dance. We're just moaning about the alien again.
Well, I wonder if it's like it didn't have they didn't think they had the limitations of some of the previous movies, because that's the thing, is they just show the alien when they shouldn't show it, because they can't show it really in a way that makes it scary or even believable. And in previous films, it feels like they knew we can't. If we show this, people will see it's a man in a suit or whatever, so we won't. We'll just do it very, very sparingly. Whereas here, obviously, it's kind of, I don't know exactly what kind of effect it is. It's like maybe some early CG with and some early stop motion, and not early, but you know what I mean, combined. But anyway, they thought like, we can do this, we can get this in the film now, and it'll be better for it. But actually, it's not. It's like less would have been more. I don't think I found it at all scary. I found the place scary. I hate the place is so hateful, and I hated Ripley being there, even though she can, she's super capable and can handle herself. It's horrible that's constant threat.
It runs against everything that I enjoy about, or am motivated to kind of be invested in the first two movies, which is about surviving and about taking as many people as you can with you, especially all the kind of themes of family in the second film, to then have that family just immediately dead. And then, like you said, for her just to have it confirmed that she's got an alien in her, so the best thing that can happen to her is to die.
Yeah.
It's difficult to know what the stakes are at that point. I guess to make sure that the alien dies with her, it's quite unpleasant, isn't it?
But there's not really anybody around her who is likable, who I want to live. There's Danny Webb's character who's kind of like a cheerleader against her the whole time, but then sort of comes good at the end. He's the guy who pours the lead and he gets shot in the leg, and maybe he turns on the company. Well, he's not really part of the company, but he helps her in the battle against the company.
So the one who lives at the end.
Yeah, but apart from that, everyone there is horrible.
I'm glad that rapist survived.
Yeah, exactly. The company are all there, Bishop, who's not Bishop, as we discussed, and he makes it clear he's not Bishop. Also, I did think it was horrible how his ear was hanging off after he got absolutely clunked by a spanner.
There's quite a lot of discussion as to whether he is an android with red blood, or whether he is, because everyone's kind of like, how did he survive with his ear?
He got absolutely mullered, and then he's just stood there with his ear hanging off, just going like, now listen, don't do it.
I really want that alien.
But yeah, it's just... it's funny, I think the previous two films really, the humans in it are brought together, by happenstance. They're not necessarily all mates, but they all fight for each other and all care for each other.
Yeah.
And then in this movie, it's the humans
a gang
are
of them
awful.
who try to rape her. That's
Exactly.
what happens.
That scene is really horrible. I don't know that it added anything because I already didn't like these people.
It fits in this movie, sure.
Yeah.
Is it something I'd like to see? I don't want to smash up people who enjoy Alien 3.
No.
But I don't really enjoy it, even though I can appreciate all the things that we're talking about. I think the sets look amazing. I think that there is a vibe to the film, which outside of the context of it being this film, I could probably have enjoyed more. But ultimately, I think it's people who are able to, it seems to me, take a step back from this being like an alien film and supposing to be a follow-up to those films, and also like an installment of the story of Ripley, and who go, wow, it's really interesting that a group of people would take something which is that Hollywood and that straightforward and then do this to it, and that in itself is interesting and exciting. And I can kind of see that, but also I just don't. But do I enjoy it? No, not really. It reminds me of people who, eat curries that are really hot, tell everyone, I'm really enjoying this curry, this is great. When I used to play rugby as a kid, there was a kid who he just made it his thing that he would drink a can of Super Teas before fortified lager just before kickoff, an entire can in the changing room, and he insisted it made him better at playing rugby. I don't think it did.
Yeah.
He was also, his name is Liam, he was quite good, even then, but I feel like that's an Alien 3 fan is kind of yeah, I love it.
I do think it's really suffered from us watching them in this way.
One after the other.
Well, you said last week, how, we enjoyed Star Trek, but then you hold up Alien and Aliens next to them
Sure.
and you go, oh man, wow, this casts them in a new light. And
this is just providing a scale of good and bad, though. This is very much the issue of Alien 3. It's quite bad.
But I think it's, I suppose we're trying to sort of understand exactly why, or what makes it bad. I think, for me, part of the reason is, and this is in direct comparison to Aliens, is we said last week, Aliens is the narrative is so tight. Everything has a purpose and a reason,
Sure.
and you understand the stakes all the time, what everybody's doing, why they're doing it. And in Alien 3, I found it quite fuzzy. I didn't really understand quite what had happened at the prison. There used to be lots of prisoners, now there's only a handful.
I think what happened was 3 people wrote 3 different scripts, and
Yes.
they put them all together, and now you have this movie.
Yeah, and then on an individual scene level, there's the scene where there's a couple of prisoners in a tunnel with some candles. Wasn't exactly sure what they were up to or why
Doing
they had
some
candles.
kind of survey? No, I didn't.
Or
know.
maybe that
It
I
looked
did.
cool.
Yeah, I guessed it was probably slightly nefarious, like they were stealing stuff or something, and they didn't want to be. I don't know, but
I don't know
like,
why that man got
didn't
acid
understand.
spat in his face, and that made him roll like Neymar about 10 meters into a fan. He
Yeah.
just kept rolling.
Yes, he did. Yeah,
Stop rolling.
And also, just the big finale. I didn't completely. We're going to channel the alien into this chamber and then pour lead on it. But the mechanics of before that, there's just people running down corridors shouting, "E's clear, E's clear, get in E." And
Yeah.
I kind of get it. They're trying to, funnel it, but just like on a purely, what this film is telling it requires me to think about it and try and piece it together rather than
Didn't
it being very
convey
clear.
the geometry
No.
of the space well enough. It was just a corridor and then a door closed, and the movie was like, just accept the fact that every time a door closes,
That's
they're
good.
getting closer to pulling off this plan.
And that's fine. Like, it's not like completely incomprehensible, but it's just compared to Aliens, which felt so tight and just like my thinking is all like removed. I am just ingesting this movie and enjoying
Well,
it.
there's two problems, right? I think that you've put your finger on it in terms of, would I enjoy the best version of this movie
Right.
if
That's what
the
I've been
script
wondering.
had been finished and it had been the perfect version of itself? And I would still have probably, if it included the narrative elements it does, in terms of the old cast being killed off and then the hope for Ripley very much just being some sort of victory in death, that's still a pretty bitter pill to swallow, I think. And then on top of that, there's the issue of the cut, and the quadrilogy, like the box set that was made in 2003, as we've spoken about, does include what's called the assembly cut, which wasn't made with David Fincher's input because he doesn't want to work on the film ever again or think about it or talk about it very often.
He'll love this episode then.
I don't know if he listens. And that it puts more things back, and there's more of a sense of what's going on. It's basically still the same story. I think there's way more Paul McGann. I think his character had more to do. But
Which one was Paul McGann?
It's the crazy one.
Anyone who isn't Charles Dance or Pete Postlethwaite, I don't know who you're talking about.
he doesn't look much like Paul
really.
McGann. He looks really skinny, and he's shaved his head. He's Golic. He's the one who ends up in a straitjacket, and
He's in the room when Charles Dance is killed. He's in the hospital bed.
he says that
in the
she's going to be
infirmary.
killed too. That guy.
So I don't really remember him. I remember the guy. I felt a bit sorry for the guy who was like, he just wanted the one they called 85 all the time.
85, 80, yeah. there's
You were
sort of-
nearly 85.
His
Well,
IQ was-
I had a lower IQ.
I was
We had to
thinking,
go, that's
do
too
enough
high.
people know that you were born in 86 for me to call you 86 in the intro?
I'm born in 85.
Are you? I
Yeah.
thought, oh,
Yes,
oh my God.
I know, you've
You
missed
shouldn't
a
have
trick
said
there.
that, my friend.
You've missed a trick there. Yeah, it's... I don't know why I've said yeah. I thought... Why were the cast so unrelentingly British?
It was made in Britain. I think that's
that
pretty
literally
much,
it?
I think so. Well, I think it does capture some of the spirit of the original film in having... Well, actually, there's only one British. It's only John Hurt, isn't it, in the original film? Yeah, I don't
Ian
know.
Holm's British, isn't
Oh,
he?
of course. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
The Holm and the Hurt of it all. But again, made in England, made in Pinewood. And I think that might be it.
You can get around that, but yeah,
Of course.
I mean, yeah, it's
It's one of the
that
things
was-
I enjoy about the film is
Yes.
those seeing how many, and honestly, great casting, because so many of them have gone on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, well, I
Or
saw
other
Pete
things.
Postlethwaite, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a big character. We're going to see some Pete Postlethwaite later in this movie."
He's
And
just
like,
texting.
he doesn't say hardly anything, and he has one scene with Ripley, I think.
Yeah.
It was just a bald guy.
Yeah,
It's a bald guy we can get in the film.
Yeah, that's true. We won't even have to shave this guy's head. This will be perfect. So yeah, I don't know. So I think you're right. The fuzziness of it doesn't help, and the relentlessly bleakness of it doesn't help. It makes it the perfect candidate for what we were talking about in the bonus episode last week, just about the idea of there being a version of this movie that we've never got to see. Again, like one of those sort of blighted what might have been things. And I think that's probably why you get so many of those sort of contrarian takes of Alien 3 is good, actually.
as someone who's not seen it before, I was getting carried along with it. I was before the dog, particularly probably up until the dog burst. I was very much like, what's going to happen here? How are they going to find out? You know, has Ripley been impregnated? I don't know what the in-universe term for it is, but has she been affected? It's like we've said, not a lovely setting, not lovely characters, but I was going along with the story for quite a long time. Quite kind of, I wanted to know what was happening and what would happen. So I think that's a big plus. Like it's not just like it's there is a lot there that can carry you along. Like I said, I think it really suffers from just being the third Alien movie off the back of two great ones, and then obviously its production had a bit of an issue, and it's just racing to catch up. It would be a miracle to pull out an amazing Alien movie, probably with a production like it had.
It kind of makes me feel like they had done almost everything that you could do with Alien, and maybe apart from make it incredibly dark and bleak and set it on a planet literally full of rapists. Like, what an idea for a Hollywood film. And in a way, maybe that's what, like I said, maybe that's what people are enjoying, the unlikeliness of it and the obsceneness of trying something like that. But in everything that Aliens did that was a bit of a swing or a little bit different, we're going to have Marines. The Marines are amazing. The way they talk is amazing. Their banter, their camaraderie, the action set pieces that come from it, it's all great. We're going to have loads of hardware. The hardware is like this generational touchstone for how the future looks in Hollywood movies, and the load is amazing. We're going to have a Queen Alien. We're going to invent new myth with it. It's like when you think about what that movie did, the Queen Alien versus but this alien's a bit like a dog. Like that's the version that we get. Just the stuff that we have to hold on to. And I get that it's maybe not even going for those, but then it's ultimately not setting out to deliberately frustrate a portion of the audience, but knows it's not going to be carrying lots of that audience with them. It's tricky, isn't it? I think maybe it was just never going to be a big sequel to Aliens.
I think it starts fantastically well with the change to the 20th Century Fox theme. Genuinely unsettling. I love it when films use the very opening credits. It's probably called something before opening credits, to some effect. It's done when it's done. I think it's always brilliant, and this is probably one of the best ever because it's such a familiar fanfare. For me, it is Star Wars.
Yeah.
You're settling in, and it's the safe space. It's like, even if I'm going to watch something scary, this bit right now is nice and warm, and it evokes memories of things I love, and I'm settling in for an adventure. Here we go. And it takes that away from you right at the end in a way where you're kind of comprehending it after you hear it. You're like, what's happening? Why am I upset?
I'm sad.
What's this? I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And then I thought that the opening kind of montage during the credits to just snatches of what's happening was pretty horrible, like in a good way. Like it was scary.
I didn't like that because of what was happening. It was this I don't know like how much the film owes to the previous film or to the characters. They're not real. I know they're not real, but I have invested my time, and there is and obviously it's not the same filmmakers, but it's the same series, and I have been asked on the one hand to enjoy their escape, and now what I didn't like is that the amount of time is so offhand to just do a fragmentary blinking flashback of something went wrong in space. And
I think this is the main thing I wanted to discuss in terms of fandom as well. I think it speaks to fandom, a very particular problem with fandom a lot, and we see it. Aliens 3 is a great example where you feel
owed.
Oh, yeah, you feel an entitlement to characters that you, as you say, you have been asked in a previous movie to invest emotional energy in liking these characters. The movie was successful. Yeah. You enjoyed the characters and you liked them. And there are so many other examples of it, like symbolically, you could say at the beginning of The Last Jedi, Luke Skywalker getting handed the lightsaber. What does he do? He tosses it behind him. The Last of Us Part 2, in terms of video games, is another amazing example of it. The anger that came out when a beloved character from the previous game is unceremoniously killed off very early on.
I was going to say, what about Metal Gear Solid 2 for you, Rob? You must have experienced that. Just the fact that is that the one where it pivots and you're not playing the character you thought?
Not so much, I guess, with that one. Because he is still alive and you play as him for the first couple of hours. But then the rest of the movie you're playing as someone who everyone hated, yes. I guess you could say it's a little bit like that. But this is what I find interesting. And in my view, a lot of the reasons people don't like Alien 3 is not because they are thinking about its merits as a film. It's because they're so angry that Hicks and Newt have been killed straight away in a way that and Michael Biehn was so angry about it when he saw the script that he didn't give them permission to use his likeness, and so they had to just show like a bloodied torso. They were able to use his photo for that little computer bit where they just confirmed that he's dead. Apparently he got paid more for that photo than he did for his entire role in Aliens.
Almost as much.
What?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Almost as much.
I think, I do think you're right, Rob. Definitely about that sort of entitlement to a character. I've definitely felt it with Star Wars, like you say, in some ways, but also hate the idea of it because I think that as a fan, I am a passenger. I don't get to steer the thing. But then, and someone else has been chosen to do that, and I suppose you just kind of have to, I don't know, kind of accept it.
My take is that I think, of course, you're right. And of course, fandom invites people to be invested in things. And then it's a dangerous relationship, isn't it? And I love being shown something I didn't know that I wanted and then enjoying that even more. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's difficult. And it's probably, we all watched all of these 3 films when they were all out. I don't think I watched Aliens before Alien 3 came out. I remember the press at the time, but I hadn't seen Aliens yet. And I think that Aliens is a great example, though, of it being... Imagine if you were just a big horror fan. You'd have to admit Aliens is still a cracking film. But, I just wanted more horror. I wanted another thing in the line of Alien, but... And I don't think you... Basically, what I'm saying is it also has to be good, right? And I do think that there's... And it's possible to change up what's happening and then to just really excel at it and then offer something else. And I don't think it does that.
I think going back to what I was saying about the opening is like I found it horrible and shocking, especially because I was just seeing the characters I liked just being killed quite unceremoniously, I suppose. But I also appreciated that, my jaw was literally hanging open during those little snatched scenes, but I also appreciated that it just drew a line under it quite quickly. If the film's not going to have them in it, I think it's quite a smart way of dealing with it, actually, because it's just done and onwards.
Just don't make it about Ripley either. Yeah. I don't know, because Ripley is so bound up as a character. I understand that Sigourney Weaver may be leaning into the real world element of it. She has become such a core part of the marketing and the image of the movie that it's difficult to separate her from it. But at the same time, people who are invested in that lots of them are also going to be invested in what's happened to her in the previous movie. I think it's become such a tightly knit thing, it's very difficult to separate them.
You just made me momentarily imagine a film that's centered around Bishop, and then and it was cool in my head. I thought none of the plot points or anything, but it's Bishop cool. there, and then at the end, the real Bishop comes, and they have a moment where they're face to face, and it's cool, and he's the android, and it's cool. I've just rewritten it in my head. Don't ask me to write it down.
The alien's there as well. I've got to choose which is the real Bishop.
Wrong. Milk. Oh no.
I'd rather watch that movie. No, I'm not super down on Alien 3. The other thing I was going to say about sort of that formulation of fandom, the fanulation, is that I think because I know that I would like, basically, you can have so much of the same thing and sure, diminishing returns. I want to be shown something I didn't know I wanted. And I think that if that's true, you have to accept that sometimes people are going to take a risk and it's not going to come off. And then you have to try and be like slightly grown up about it. Like I was with The Last Jedi. No, I was. And you just kind of got to step away and say, look, this isn't for me, which is kind of how I feel about Alien. And the idea that all the Alien films have all got to be brilliant or whatever, just enjoy the ones that are there that you do enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, what I do appreciate is that they haven't just tried to do the same thing that the previous two films had done. And as someone who has not seen any of the more recent Alien films, I've already formed an opinion on those, which is from the trailers, which is It looks like they are trying to recapture or grasp a hold of the thing that made Alien great in the first place. Let's try some of the elements that are in Alien. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. I don't know. And I saw a trailer for Alien Romulus, the newest one, right? Alien Romulus. And it's got the song that Ripley sings to herself right at the end of Alien when she's trying to eject it out the airlock, My Lucky Star, whatever it's called. And it's like a sour, echoing version of that song playing throughout the trailer. Like, again, a trope I am sick and tired of now. A trailer that's a remake of an old thing and a slow, sour, epic remix of a song from that thing playing through it. And already I'm coming at... When we get to those films, they've got a lot to do.
Blimey.
Because I'm already annoyed by them.
I don't know if that's okay. I do agree about the trailer thing, though. That is, trailers are particularly guilty. Just any form of any medium is guilty of it, really. I suppose someone does something well once, and you're like, I'm going to do that on my thing, and then
well, I think what they're doing, and there's like a 10-year period of Hollywood now where they've done it quite a lot. Is that we are into, we were anyway, but especially with Marvel, this kind of hyper serialized bit of Hollywood. So we're talking about kind of the Star Wars reboot. That first trailer is like a masterclass of that exact thing. We've talked about this before, probably on the podcast, but that trailer with the slowed down version of the old score and Harrison Ford saying, the Jedi, whatever, it's all true.
So
it's just speaking directly to fans and saying, we're bringing back the thing that you like. We're getting the band back together. Ghostbusters, really similar, I thought. Extremely similar vibe, and the Star Trek reboot, which obviously we did watch on the podcast. I think Romulus has got to be in that same vein, in that it is trying to tap into, it's trying to signal up what it's doing. We're not Alien 3. Do you remember the old ones? We're going to try and be a bit like that. And I think that when we get there, it does have qualities as well, Romulus, because I've seen it quite recently. But I think ultimately, one of the interesting things that it brings up is that I think sequels weren't the amount of time that it took to make Aliens and then Alien 3 and then even Resurrection. It isn't like in the way that Hollywood is now. Can we jumpstart Alien and then get a movie out every 2 or 3 years? Because the whole point is to get a production line of reliable hits going. Whereas there was probably still more of a sense of, why are we making this film? What are we offering? The idea that you would change genre so completely for all 4 films, because the next one's very different and quite strange as well, and still take bets on young directors, even though you might not be able to follow through on that. I think it's just like completely different eras of filmmaking, and what they do with Romulus, I think, like, signals up really exactly what you're saying, that they are just trying to make. Why are they making it? I mean, there's it's enjoyable, it's entertaining, but what is it there for? I want to say just on the versions of Alien 3, because of the way that the film came about and the different scripts and the very different concepts. A wooden planet full of monks. There was one version which I mentioned briefly at the end of last week. One of you told me about it. Rob, you mentioned it maybe after we finished recording.
If you're going to talk about the thing that became an audio.
Yeah, I listened to that this week.
I've got there's one email in the mailbag this week, and it's this one about that.
Okay.
So maybe we'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, okay. I'll shut my mouth.
But in terms of the director's, the assembly cut, I should call it as well. It's considerably longer. It's half an hour longer. It makes the movie half an hour longer. And the changes in it. So this isn't even talking about that alternate script that it did end up in as an audio play.
The Gibson script.
The alien doesn't come out of a dog; it comes out of an ox. Instead,
yeah.
In the longer version, there is a version of this film that exists, and they filmed it and made it where it's an ox that gets in. An ox is used to carry the escape pod and haul it out of the water, and obviously a facehugger gets on one of the oxen.
Does that mean the dog survives?
I don't think there's a dog in it. So there's no dog in it.
My headcanon is that there is a dog and it's fine. And as everyone's dying, it's just running around. It's having a great time, sniffing stuff. That's the hero. That's what I need to see.
I think this
and then
is the first time
movie, they kill the dog off screen.
Right.
And, yeah. Anyway, sorry.
I suppose I was just thinking. I've been thinking whilst you guys have been talking, just about I don't know what I'm about to say really, but what do I want from more Alien? I'm just aware that there's another Alien movie coming, and that it's cool. I mean, and there's a few others, but I've seen Prometheus, I've seen Covenant, and I get what they're trying to add to the universe. Sure. I don't know what Resurrection is. I mean, it's called Resurrection. I don't actually know if Sigourney Weaver's in it, so I don't know anything about it. But just thinking about what I want these from these movies, and obviously I suppose from this one
It's
I
called
did
Alien Resurrection, Dave.
from this one. Well, that could be the alien resurrecting.
I guess that's
From this one, I suppose I did want more Ripley. Well, I said, you know, we wanted more of these characters. It's interesting that there's like a bunch more movies, and what are they going to add to the universe, and what do I want from
Predators.
it? Yes, there is that. I had something else to say, and it's completely gone out of my head, but maybe
I'm
it'll
sorry,
come back.
because I interrupted you.
It's fine. It's yes, it's a strange one.
I might move on to the questions.
Yeah, go for it.
It's a downbeat episode this week, isn't it?
Yeah, I do. But like we said, the setting
I think
of the movie,
podcast reflects the film we've just seen.
it's
really.
so non-aspirational. I was thinking about that as well, because I think Alien and Aliens in ways are aspirational. I think that the Nostromo is kind of has this sense of the future that is vaguely aspirational, even though it's pretty, you know, we've talked about the realism of it and it being grotty and not very nice, but there's the mother room, that's quite cool. And I think the relationships in Aliens are quite aspirational. I want to be a part of that group of people. Like I said, I really want Sergeant Apone to tell me to go somewhere. I'll go there. This setting is completely non-aspirational. And the characters in it, really, apart from Charles Dance, who even Charles Dance's character, you know, he's got a dark past that he's not really willing to talk about, and it's all a bit like it's just quite miserable. And I think that really is just seeping through. I think any story you try to tell in that place with those characters, I think is going to be incredibly difficult to make it very enjoyable.
Well, it reminds me of when we were talking about Star Trek, and the advantage of it being on TV is that you'd have another episode next week and it could do something different. If you didn't like it, that's fine. But then once you get into there being a film every 3 years or whatever, if the characters are in a pretty unpleasant spot, like in The Search for Spock, for instance, they're on a planet that's falling apart with bad special effects, then they're there for 6 years. Like by the time you get to a new film, it's quite bleak. And it feels like that. These characters come, you know, Ripley comes back, and it's like for almost 10 years, Ripley's just going to, over 10 years, Ripley's just on this desolate prison planet. It is, it's a decision.
Yeah.
It's a decision that they've made. I guess there is the element which I don't know if makes it any better, but the idea of really the sense in it, the kind of the larger themes of Alien, or the philosophical themes of Alien, which make the first film so good, which we kind of spoke about, mankind kind of trapped between the biological and technological, but this vision of our future, which does reflect very much where we are now. And it's the blue collar people are very recognizable. They're smoking in space. Is that a good idea? But that's what people do on Earth right now. And then by the time you get to the second one, we kind of spoke about, it's maybe reflecting a bit more of that 80s individualism. And at the same time, you have these themes of Giger's kind of fascination or horror at biology and sexuality. And then that's kind of tempered by this discussion of motherhood in the second film. And in this one, you do get, I guess you kind of brought it out in your synopsis, Rob, and it's open to interpretation. Is she cradling the alien? My thought was that she was holding it close, so it definitely gets burned.
Oh, she was definitely doing that, but also
the image is
the imagery of it is a mother cradling her newborn child,
and in a way that's
just a very grotesque version of it.
And it's a grotesque version of this thing which had been a celebration in that, so your human child is dead and you have to watch her being sliced up. Really, the most I don't even remember blinking the first time I saw that. I just thought that was so horrible.
It was horrible. It was really horrible.
And then that happening at the end, and there being obviously like the shadow of just human rape to go along with the regular alien rape that's been happening the whole time. I don't know, like you said, what does it you were like, do we need to go there as a film? It was there anyway in the ether because of the things that they've been saying about the inmates, and there's also nothing really there's some stuff to contemplate there. Nothing that really makes me go, oh yeah, Alien 3. Gotta love me some Alien 3.
Also, the logo is styled like it's alien cubed, and that slightly triggers me as well.
It's strange,
because I've been trying to figure out, is there a mathematical reason why it's cool, or did they just put the 3 up there because it just looked better?
I saw a teaser poster. I can't remember exactly what it said now. It had 3 cell lines on them, and it was like 3 times the terror.
Right.
3 times. And I was like, that's not.
They should have just made the E in Alien a 3.
Yeah.
It's what they should have done if they wanted the logo to look cool.
Yeah.
I've been trying to think why. What are they trying to say in this movie? Like what did they want audiences to feel?
Exactly.
Is it like is it supposed to be? Are you supposed to be rooting for the alien in a way? It's like here's a prison full of horrible people, and now the alien's going to kill them all. Yeah, are we supposed to be enjoying watching these people getting eviscerated? Because it is markedly more violent than the previous 2 in the way it lingers on and almost revels in. Someone gets chewed up by a fan, another guy gets killed, and blood just goes all over another guy's face.
Yeah.
We see the alien there, like mauling people. Like in previous movies,
Yeah.
it takes them and it cocoons them. Here, it's just savaging people and presumably enjoying it. And I'm guessing that's to do with the Rottweiler DNA that's in this particular xenomorph. It's like, it just gets to someone. And it's just eating them horribly.
Maybe that is the idea of the characters all being reprehensible, is that you can just do the bloodlust thing and enjoy it, because there's not really one character who you're like, oh no, maybe Charles Dance's character,
Dance.
but like everyone else, you're just like, eh.
And in terms of what the movie's saying, the reason I found the Charles Dance thing, so maybe it's interesting that it's the point where you stopped watching it the first time you tried to watch the film, was that's the only relationship which has got any positive element to it and is helping Ripley in any way, and then it's removed quite early. Whereas maybe you'd think even if you were that you could, if you're going to kill him, you could put him in some other scenes. You could just have that moment sit and have that. You could see the effect on her and the strength that it might give her and the companionship, and then take it into another scene where there's more of a set piece. It's just instant. It's like, I don't even know what it is. It's like, so it's just cutting it off before it's even really had a chance to flourish in any way. And that just reinforces the bleakness of the film for me. I'm not sure, obviously, like, films are like a gestalt kind of entity, and that they reflect all the work of all the people that come into it, and they can be steered in different directions and whatever. The answer, the question though, like, what is this film trying to say? I can only think that it's come from a machine which has gone, we would like another Alien film, and then has had this slightly mangled process of putting it together, and it reflects some of the strange cul-de-sacs that the production went into before it got its green light and went into production. And I'm not sure that there's a cohesiveness to it. I'm not sure that any of the people ultimately making the film that got made, I think, Vincent Walker could tell you what his version of it was going to be and why it's got the things in it that it's got, but I'm not sure that this version at the end, which retains elements for no reason other than that they existed in previous versions, really is any, like, why is it on a prison planet? What is that giving you? Or is it, no one's setting out to, like, this isn't anyone's positive idea. It's this compromise from a process of production.
I'll chuck in just one thing that it does add to the Alien universe, I think, which is interesting and will become more important, is just that for the first time, really, we see that the DNA of the host is important in whatever creature is created, which is, previously we have just always assumed that the alien is always the same.
Kind of humanoid.
It's kind of humanoid, and that's got nothing to do with it being in a human. But this is the first time when it kind of says, actually, a face hugger, it can face hug any number of creatures, and what you get out of it will be different each time.
I do like this idea.
Which is kind of interesting.
It is an interesting idea, and that ties into the kind of the deeper ideas of the Alien to me about it, the sort of extraordinarily aggressive sexuality of it. And the idea that it's compatible with anything kind of goes along with that. It's like this hyper-hybridizing sexual monster.
Yeah.
There's the iconic shot, isn't there?
That's pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably
surprising we haven't talked about that.
a really iconic shot.
The alien next to Sigourney Weaver's face.
and it's obviously somehow sensing that there's a queen inside her, and it won't kill her.
Yeah.
I found that quite a funny idea. It's not supposed to be funny, but just the idea that the alien kept keep seeing Sigourney Weaver. I don't know why I've said Alien and Sigourney Weaver, and just being like, oh, for God's sake, you.
Yeah.
Like, but I can't hurt you. Stop being around
Again,
me. Like, you're useless to
It's
me.
this frustration of the absolute core purpose of the Alien films is
Yeah.
that Sigourney Weaver is in peril.
Yeah.
And then she's not in peril.
No, it literally won't go near her.
It's like a reverse magnet. It's like this is completely.
It's basically the whole film is Sigourney Weaver surrounded by sexual predators who probably want to do horrible things to her but can't.
Yeah, right.
And are trying to fight their base instinct to do bad and wrong.
Yeah, it was true. But my point, just being with the aliens, that she's literally going looking for the aliens.
Yeah.
Please kill me. And the alien's like, no, I'm not going
can't.
to kill you. So, well, I thought I was watching an alien movie. I thought she was running away.
It is a good shot, though.
It is a good shot. And,
And many memes have been made.
talking about good shots, standout scene, I'm going to ask Rob.
Oh, I would probably say, well, it's a horrible scene, but the scene that sticks most in my mind is the autopsy scene. Like it's
I was going to jokingly say, is it when Charles Dance opens a child's chest cavity?
It's not. I don't like the scene, but you can't deny it's incredibly effective, and again shows the amount of crap that Ripley has to go through because of this alien, and to make sure that the alien, she's there at this point. She hasn't revealed why, because she thinks no one's going to believe her. She's got all these constant battles going on inside her. She's like, I can't reveal the truth. Everyone's going to think I'm absolutely nuts if I tell them, well, I've got to make sure there isn't an alien inside her, please. And it's when she realizes that the autopsy hasn't gone far enough and that they're going to have to open her chest to make sure there's nothing in there as well. And Charles Dance he's got the best eyes ever, hasn't he? Just
Yeah.
the stare that
Those
says,
blue eyes.
you really want me to open her chest? Because I'm going to have to do it using this horrible looking saw here.
That was horrible.
Apparently, the original version of the autopsy scene was much longer,
Yeah.
Oh, God.
and people didn't like it.
Yeah.
What about you, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I just can't. It stands out to me because I just really didn't like it, and I don't think it was necessary. And it's the attempted rape scene. I just can't. It just sticks out like a sore thumb to me. It doesn't do anything really to move the plot along, or the only bit of saving grace for it is that character comes good. I've forgotten his name. Dylan comes good and saves Ripley, but I don't think that it was necessary. It was just quite horrible, and it stands out to me as just being I just
There's
hate
something
it.
quite Mad Maxy, wasn't there, about all the prisoners in that bit?
Yeah.
Just putting the goggles on, heavy metal music.
Yeah.
It was very strange.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was quite steampunky, the glasses especially. I think mine's probably even though I didn't enjoy a lot of this film, the scene we've already talked about of Ripley falling into the molten lead, even though even that special effect I don't think is very good. I enjoy that, and it's a bit well done.
We've all picked 3 scenes we didn't really like.
Symbolically, it works just fine. Standout performance. Everyone's going to say Charles Dance. Should we
Yes.
just skip? Should we move on? No, go on. Talk about Charles Dance. Somebody. Aren't his eyes nice?
He's got great eyes. It's weird because I remember him when I first attempted to watch this movie. I remembered him being really charismatic, but quite sinister. And when I watched it this time, I was like, he's just quite a nice man compared to everyone else.
He's the least sinister man in it, yeah.
He often plays quite intimidating, cold characters, Charles Dance, I guess, just because of his face and the way he can look at you. But yeah, he's just quite a magnetic presence, isn't he? In everything that he's in. And you do wonder as well, like, how do you, when you talk about movies as a sum of, you just talk about what is in them, and it's hard to be able to tell just from that, is that going to be a good film or not? And sometimes the difference is, are the actors in it good? And I think the movie suffers massively from Charles Dance being killed about halfway through.
Yeah.
You just want a presence like that throughout the movie, because he would be someone I would hope wouldn't die. He'd be someone I'd be rooting for. And I think it's strange to put that much effort into obviously making the audience try and emotionally invest in someone, and to have him killed off so unceremoniously. He's killed like an NPC. It's just gone.
I'll sit here and armchair rewrite things based on that and go like, yeah, that would have been better. But I think you're right, Rob. And he also would have been someone for Ripley to care about at the end of the film. Like more of a reason even to launch herself into the lead or whatever. Like,
come away with me.
To save
we can raise
someone.
this alien queen together.
Yeah, but like I feel like she needs. It's just horrible. She, like I said, she's had this terrible week. She manages to make a connection with somebody even on this god awful prison planet, and then they're killed halfway through the movie as well. It's just so bleak. But if he'd been alive at the end, maybe
It's every
would have been
man she
something
has
for her to-
a remote connection to in any of the films,
Yeah.
like Dallas in the first one, Hicks, although he actually survives technically. In my canon, everyone lives happily ever after Aliens.
Best line.
This is the other thing. It's just not a quotable film at all, is it?
No,
No.
it's not.
Bishop going,
saying, "I'd rather be nothing."
oh, that was good.
That was
Yeah.
quite bleak.
Yeah.
If I'm not top of the line, I'd rather be nothing.
I liked that they. I quite liked that they used animatronics for Bishop the android this time. He was so smashed up. Obviously, they've already done right back in Alien. They've done the kind of old switcheroo with Ian Holm.
Yeah.
I liked that they did that,
Face.
especially because then it made seeing real Bishop, Lance Henriksen, at the end, like a little bit more gratifying in a way, because it was like, oh, there's the real face.
He's credited as Bishop too,
Yeah, I saw that.
which I think helps fuel the idea that
Right.
he's also an android. So,
Yeah.
well, that's just another Bishop.
Yes, that was
I
strange.
think
A
it's
strange
probably
choice.
just a bit of
Unless he
shorthand.
is an android.
Are we still fans of Alien?
Yeah, I think we are.
Yeah, well, I think we've already determined that there being a bad thing in a series of just a couple of things you like doesn't mean you're not a fan. If anything, it just makes me hold Aliens and Alien even closer in my fans' embrace. I love these two films. I'll protect you from all the rubbish swirling around you.
What do we think of people who can embrace Alien 3 without
What do I
declaring
think of people?
without declaring war on them?
I think
The Alien 3
I
likers.
think a lot of them are deliberately being contrarian, but some people genuinely like it. Some people genuinely like Star Trek Generations, as
It's true.
evidenced last week.
It's true.
Some people genuinely like Final Fantasy 13. I don't understand these people, but everyone likes what they like, and I don't enjoy, for the sake of argument,
Yeah.
just dunking on people who don't like the same things that you like.
No, me neither.
But
also-
what I was going to say was that I don't know. Again, I've started a point without knowing exactly where I'm going, but I'm not someone who replays games.
Sure.
I play them once, I enjoy the story, and that's it. I am someone who rewatches films a lot. I've always rewatched films I love. This is not a film I can ever see myself rewatching, but that's not to say there's lots of films that I've enjoyed, but I'm not going to rewatch it. I think that it doesn't annoy me that it exists, or it's perfectly fine that it's the story. I can accept that's Ripley's story. Those three films.
That's what I have difficulty with.
I think it just is, and I'm happy with that. And I don't have to like the story at the end, but I can accept that that's it. But I'm not. For fans of the film, I can understand being of that point of view. I can understand less rewatching the movie, I suppose, just because it's like I'm not too sure what you're going to get out of it. It's just so bleak, and like you said, there's not any really great quotable lines. I don't think there's a bit that I'd be especially looking forward to. And for me, that is the highest mark of enjoying a film, is when I'm going to watch it again. And I can't see myself doing that. But I don't. Obviously, it doesn't. That's me.
Yeah, and I think that the only thing I'd say about fandom is that, or whether I'm still a fan. Obviously, what is true is that I still enjoy the first two movies, and I didn't particularly enjoy this one, and I knew that already. And it doesn't really change my opinions about Alien. I guess it brings into the focus the idea: can you be a fan of a whole? Well, you've already kind of answered it, really, Rob. But is there an expectation you'll love the whole thing, or if you're a fan, do you feel a bit put out if there's a bit of a thing that you don't like? Oh, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
What's this about?
I think we've talked about this before. I was thinking, it came into sharp relief for me the other day, just thinking about bands. For some reason, it's okay. I think of myself as a fan of bands, and bands tend to go on a creative journey, and I like their early albums, and then they start going in a direction I don't like so much, and that's okay. And I just drift away, and I'm happy with that. With movie franchises, it feels more difficult somehow.
It's when it's character and story, and I think you've been invested in it. Because I don't care. Like,
right.
It's funny, we talk about David Fincher. There was a time I was, God help me, I was 18 when Fight Club came out, right?
Yeah.
Or 17. I love Fight Club. What a great film. I watched Seven, used to love, so I was like a big Fincher guy at university. Imagine how unbearable that would have been. And I never really liked Alien 3 even so, but it's not like when there's a bad Fincher movie, I'm like, oh, God damn it. Or, how many bad ones are there? But one that I don't enjoy as much, I'm just kind of like, oh, that's interesting. I'll put that with the other ones and I'll think about it some more. But when it's got characters that I've been asked to invest in, I think that's when I'm like,
I've definitely had to tell myself that I'm okay with the idea that I don't love all Star Wars. And just go like, it's, I'm a fan of the bits of Star Wars that I'm a fan of, and I'm not a fan of some of the other bits. And I think it would be unusual really to just say I am a Star Wars
always
fan
going
now.
to love all of Star Wars.
Yeah, anything that's made about Star Wars.
And I guess the more difficult thing maybe with Star Wars, something like The Last Jedi, which wasn't for me, but was obviously for a lot of people who really enjoyed it. And I feel like with Alien 3, I think there's more of a case of saying there aren't that many people. It's not the same. There's not that many people who like Alien 3. My final question, is there more good Alien than bad? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, still. And actually my natural last question is, would you recommend Alien 3 to a friend?
No.
There's this bit with a dog.
Yeah.
You've just got to see it.
I wouldn't, and I think that's kind of what I've been badly articulating about the rewatch thing is I'd maybe say watch it if you've seen Alien and Aliens. Yeah. Just to because it does, like I said, I feel like there's a loose end at the end of Aliens, and you
only
deserve
need to watch
know
the first 10 minutes.
I think if I ever came across anyone who said to me, I've seen Alien, I've seen Aliens, my recommendation would be stop there.
Yeah.
That's what I'd recommend.
It was so funny that Dave was like, I can't wait to see what happens there. Newton Hicks.
I honestly, I didn't think it was going to go well, but I didn't think that it would be over in the first 30 seconds for them.
Can we retreat to the relative safety of the mailbag?
We can, yes. I'm just going to get this email because I thought it was very interesting. We've talked about versions. We've talked about how troubled the development of this film was. Even just through the existence of this assembly cut that's half an hour longer. And there were, I've been reading a little bit online about the various problems they were facing in terms of constant rewrites, to the point where they would film a scene and the next day they would get a rewrite through and they would have to film it again because it had completely changed. I imagine that would have been incredibly frustrating to just work on this film. But interestingly, the story of the Gibson script, which is brought up here in this email from John S., who says, "Hello, Nath, Rob and Dave. Hello. I may be jumping ahead a little bit, but I wanted to talk briefly about the upcoming episode with Alien 3. It's well known the film had a really tumultuous production, with many different scripts being passed around and going through different directors, eventually landing on David Fincher. And it is worth saying that Ridley Scott was originally offered the chance to direct Alien 3, but he turned it down because I think the script that he was on board, I think it might have been the Gibson script even, ultimately wasn't made, and he didn't enjoy the direction they were going with. Anyway, I digress.
Nobody did.
So eventually landing on David Fincher, who was an up-and-coming director doing music videos. Now, I wouldn't say the third Alien film is my least favourite, but definitely comes nowhere close to hitting the highs that the first two films did. A couple of years ago, I came across that William Gibson wrote a script for the third Alien film. Gibson was an accomplished... I love the fact that he's refusing to Call it by its name, Alien 3, the third Alien film. Gibson was an accomplished science fiction writer from the 80s and early 90s. Apparently, Fox turned down his script, though, because they felt that the budget would have been too high, having larger set pieces and more action. And the script didn't feature Ripley as the lead. Which I believe is understandable for Fox to be hesitant. Anyway, I wanted to mention this only because the script ended up being adapted into a graphic novel in 2018 and an audiobook version of the script, which included Michael Biehn and Lance Henriksen reprising the roles of Hicks and Bishop. Cool. So, for fans of the Alien films, I believe it's a much better sequel to Aliens than the mess of a sequel Alien 3 ended up becoming. Is it great? I wouldn't say that, but definitely far more enjoyable and introduces a lot of unique ideas that you would see come into fruition in some of the other later Alien sequels. Just curious about your thoughts on this thrown-away script, if you've read or have listened to the audio version of it. Maybe an idea for one of the bonus episodes to go over this and compare it with the shit show that Alien 3 did become ultimately. Apologies for the long message. Appreciate all you guys are doing and absolutely love the podcast. Regards, John Schuerman.
Nice.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Thanks,
you
John.
have listened to it.
Yeah, because you mentioned that email, I think, last week. And just picking up from what John said, my understanding of it was that part of the reason it didn't get made was because it had a Cold War theme.
Right.
And then the Cold War ended. And suddenly the idea of a Cold War movie was not so interesting. Although I was trying to think what a submarine movie around that. Crimson Tide? Is that got...
Around...
Hunt for Red October.
Yeah, Hunt for
Crimson
Red October.
Tide's different, isn't it? Anyway, I really enjoyed it. And I was kind of like, am I enjoying this just because Michael Biehn and Lance Henriksen are telling me a story? I was on a dog walk. Sunset was nice. Winter, autumn, great. And I listened to it. But so the stuff that I liked, it goes deeper. And in a way, I was like, is this just retreating into the movie's lore? And what is it giving us that's new or as exciting as Alien and Aliens? And maybe nothing. But the general idea is, everyone is alive, first of all, which is good. But there's basically more company nonsense, and the weapons division are trying to get hold of these people because they're still looking for elements of the alien. And the big kind of idea is that the Sulaco, for a small period of time, goes into the territory of a breakaway group of humans called the United something of Socialist People. I can't remember, but it's basically like the Soviet Union. And all of in the audio book, those people are Russian and Chinese and that kind of old idea of the East and versus the company and its kind of capitalism. And basically what happens is they both start developing the alien as a weapon as soon as they can. Or there's an idea that there's like an ongoing development of that anyway. That's what they've been trying to do. So obviously it's an arms race. And there's some scenes in it which are written very much like quite smart, like soldiers from East and West meeting on the Berlin Wall, and they kind of both know each other and there's a familiarity and respect. There's that kind of diplomacy. And a couple of those things I thought were really well written in terms of the logic that, when you read old sort of history accounts that Russia used to use, where they're neither of them are admitting to the espionage or the stuff that they're actually doing, but both sides kind of know what's going on. I really enjoyed all of that stuff, and I felt like actually that would have been the idea of alien as nuclear weapon. Basically, it's kind of like we're both developing these things. It's harming us at the same time because you can imagine what's happening in the labs where they're trying to develop these things. But everybody is alive. I just want to stress that. Everybody's alive. There was, and jumping to a different thing, there was a Neil Blomkamp was developing an alien story before they made Prometheus. I think it was squashed because of Prometheus. And then a few years later, he released loads of his concept art. And that was just, let's ignore Alien 3 and Alien 4 is whenever it's set. So let's ignore that too. And it brought back Hicks as well. And there was a story with Hicks and the concept art. He's got like a melted face because of the alien acid. Anyway, those are the things I like. It's weird, isn't it? It's like there's just a world where like a group of the fandom is so attached to the idea that these characters shouldn't have died that it is enough to power or like Amazon to fund this Audible. It's quite an expensive kind of production, really. It's Dirk Maggs who used to, I don't know, you've probably heard some of his stuff that he used to do for radio, BBC, like radio, is it 6 Extra or 7, whatever it was? Anyway, Radio 4 Extra it is now. Yeah, he's done Neil Gaiman adaptations, and he's done like 20 years of stuff. He did the original, actually, I believe. I was going to talk to you guys about this because we talked about Independence Day in a previous podcast, and it was the big movie of 1996, as we all remember, that there was a radio tie-in called Independence Day UK or ID4 UK, and it was kind of like War of the Worlds, and it was broadcast, I think, on Radio 1, and it was like, you know, regular programming, and then it would be, can't even remember, it was like one of the daytime presenters just being, we've got this report from, and it was like Patrick Moore talking about the sky, and then they just pretended they were aliens and stuff. Anyway, that was Dirk Maggs, and he also produced this Alien 3 thing, and I enjoyed it. People should listen to it because Hicks is alive.
Apparently part of the script, it was, the plan was for it to be movies 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And so Hicks and Bishop were sort of like the protagonists of 3. Ripley was going to be in a coma, and it would be setting up for Ripley to come back in the 4th film.
Yeah, I'm not quite finished, and she's just woken up.
Oh.
So that I can...
Was the audiobook both?
Yes,
of those things?
I believe it is.
Okay, interesting.
Well, I'm not sure exactly how it fits together, but I read the same thing, that they would kind of hold her over from a 4th part. I really wish that they'd done that. Is that all mailbag?
That is all mailbag. We're quite soon after recording our previous episode, so we've only had about 3 or 4 emails in that time.
And I would, again, encourage... Well, I guess when are people going to listen to this next Monday? So the new episode has gone out today. I'm trying to think what I want people to tell us about. I want them to tell us about films in series where they were like... It really challenged their idea of... I'm invested in this, and how you felt about it when an entry to a thing that you love came along that you struggled with. Did you get your head around it? Did you cope? Did you pretend it wasn't there? Did you wait for 25 years and listen to an audiobook version of it? What did you do?
Let us know. Email us at redshirtcinemaclub@gmail.com.
But what was the critical reception to the movie like, Nath?
I'll tell you. Well, first of all, I'll say that the budget was estimated between $50 and $60 million, and the box office 159.8, so basically $160 million. And there was a Variety ad taken out in October 1992 by Fox, which called it the baddest of them all. Bad still being used to mean good.
People high-fiving that one, like, we're not lying.
At that point, so it did well. It didn't do particularly well domestically, but foreign markets. You know, it's funny because Star Trek was very much this is working at home. It's quite militaristic and American, and I guess I always like every now and again there's a movie that comes along like David Lynch's Dune or whatever, and the French just love it, and you're kind of like, yeah, of course you do. And relevant for next week because of who makes Alien Resurrection. Roger Ebert on his television show with Siskel said it's probably the best looking bad movie I've seen in a while. And they collectively gave it 2 thumbs down. Oh. I don't think that people particularly enjoyed it, but it, actually made like a decent amount of money. I'm not sure if it actually made money by the time you've paid all of your costs and the cinemas have had their cut and whatever, but it wasn't like a complete bomb. What happened next? I hear everybody asking. Nobody really wanted to make another sequel. I mentioned earlier on, Sigourney Weaver thought that Ripley's death liberated the series from her and was happy to be out before Alien vs. Predator became a thing. And even Brandywine, Walter Hill and David Giler thought that a script thought that doing more was a bad idea. It was kind of a conclusion. Ripley was dead. Why would you go further? But Fox thought they should go further, and they hired Josh Whedon to write the script, who at that point he'd started his career on sitcoms like Roseanne. He'd worked as a script doctor in Hollywood for a few years on things like Speed and Waterworld, and had obviously been one of the writers on Toy Story, which had just come out around the time that this was going into production. Alien Resurrection, which is the movie this became, actually came out the same year as Buffy the Vampire Slayer started on television. So a big year for Josh Whedon, however you want to say it. Fox approached to be the director of this new Joss Whedon scripted movie Danny Boyle, who just made Trainspotting. Obviously, if he'd made this, he would never have made 28 Days Later, which I would miss. Peter Jackson, who had just made Heavenly Creatures, obviously went on to to direct a little thing called Lord of the Rings. The only reason we know that I can see that Peter Jackson was asked to direct it is because there's an archive of a web chat from the onering.net, which I remember being big. At university, I used to be on that site a lot because the movies ran. I used to love it. And he used to do like fan chats on there. And somebody was just, the question was like, would you ever, if they asked, would you ever do an Alien movie? Would you jump at the chance? And his like one line answer was, they actually asked me to direct Alien Resurrection, but I couldn't get excited for the idea of making an Alien movie. Just, I guess he's got like 100 chats to reply to. But yeah, that's the only confirmation I've seen. But I've seen it. And Bryan Singer, who had made The Usual Suspects and would go on to make X-Men. So isn't it interesting that they're not wrong? These are the people you should be asking to make a genre movie in 1997, but they all said no. And then they offered it to Jean-Pierre Jeunet, who had made Delicatessen and The City of Lost Children, and not really interested in working in Hollywood massively, although he obviously did come across and make the next Alien film. And I think that we'll probably see some of that je ne sais quoi in the in the next film, and his approach to it. And there are some amazing quotes that he's given in the years since about his what he thinks of Hollywood and Josh Whedon in particular. Fincher warned him that it might be a rough ride and to watch out for how difficult the studio could be and whether it was a bit of a poison chalice. But he actually had a high degree of freedom, which he still talks about now in terms of rewrites and being able to bring his French crew over and doing what he wanted with the movie. As with Fincher, Sigourney Weaver was very supportive. Again, I think that she is an interesting... that's what we should do to make this a much better episode of the podcast. Having all been done, we should tell our Sigourney Weaver story.
Right,
we should tell it at the end. Filming started in October 1996. Studio space was limited because of the production of several films around that time, but including Titanic and Starship Troopers, which I highlight obviously because James Cameron from Aliens is now making Titanic, and Starship Troopers is the adaptation of the book that he got his Marines to read on the set of Aliens. And it was released November the 6th, 1997. I was 16 years old.
What a time.
What a time. Been to my first Reading Festival that year. Wow. Seen Event Horizon at the cinema.
I just started secondary school.
My
Year
parents had
7.
just broken up in May that year.
Yippee.
Yeah.
I was 10. I was in my final year of primary school.
Wow. Did
Big
you have
fish in a small pond.
Did you have your PlayStation yet?
No,
Oh, interesting.
no. In fact, I was
Rob.
1 year away
Wow. T minus 1
from
year.
getting my PlayStation. Yes.
Does that mean you were at primary school with Oliver Boubier? Was he...
Yes, I was at school with Oliver Boubier.
that name has just stuck with me the whole time.
I don't know if this was intentional, Nath. Probably,
Oh, if I said something
maybe. No, it was just the irony. You really made it sound like the irony of particularly Sigourney Weaver and maybe others saying, let's kill the franchise.
Yeah.
And the company going, no.
Right.
We think we can do some more with this. Good we can do with this.
Ripley! Give it to me! Yeah, it's very true. So we haven't deliberately teased this. At the beginning of our podcast episode on Alien, we mentioned having that Dave and I have met Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
And it was suspenseful and thrilling in its own way.
It certainly was.
And then we forgot to tell that story on that episode. And then we said, we'll definitely tell it. Aliens. And then we forgot then as well. We should tell it now.
Yeah. I don't think it's a great story
It's
necessarily.
not a great story.
It's
Imagine that we're 5 pints in and we're in the pub. That's the best.
right, exactly.
time to
Now
tell
you
this
can
story.
enjoy this story.
That's the level of entertainment you'll
I
get
mean,
from it.
meeting Sigourney Weaver's already, that could be the story.
Yes.
It's a very good story.
Well, for me, there's an extra element, which is that, I think at this time, I don't even know if I'd seen Alien at this time.
Really?
No, I don't think.
Can I
don't
add
think
the
I had.
context that we were in New York for
This reason.
this reason to
It's-
see Sigourney Weaver. We were working at that time at the Yogscast. That's
Yeah.
where at PlayStation Access, our YouTube channel, was based. And we were going partly for ourselves, but mostly as to get ourselves on the trip. We were helping out a member of the Yogscast with their production. So we were there to shoot an interview and record an interview with Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah, and it was because Sigourney Weaver was reprising her role in the DLC for Alien Isolation.
I believe it's called Crew Expendable.
Right. And so we were going over to New York. It was very exciting for me because it was the first time I'd been to New York, and we were meeting Sigourney Weaver. And whilst I don't think I had seen Alien yet, do you know what? I probably had, but I was very aware of Sigourney Weaver, not least because this is important. She stars in one of my favourite guilty pleasure comfort movies, which is Working Girl.
Which you're going to say Copycat.
I don't know if either of you have seen Working Girl, but
of course.
Working Girl's kind of like a sort of romance, kind of 80s romantic female empowerment movie.
Yeah, it's almost like a throwback to kind of screwball comedies, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like a workplace, very quick dialogue kind of.
And in that movie, Sigourney Weaver, she's not the protagonist, but she's an important character. But her character, anyway, during the movie breaks her leg and ends up in a New York apartment with her kind of leg up, into plaster, ordering people around. And a couple of weeks or a week before we got to meet Sigourney Weaver in New York, she broke her leg. So we ended up interviewing Sigourney Weaver in a New York apartment with her leg in plaster.
Yeah.
And for me, that was just too much because it was just like, oh my God, it's like I'm in I'm in Working Girl.
You're Harrison Ford in this.
But
situation.
in Working Girl, Sigourney Weaver's character is not very nice.
No.
But Sigourney Weaver is so nice.
She was incredibly nice
She
and
was so
incredibly
nice.
professional and articulate. And our friend Kim from the Yogscast, who we were doing you can find this probably online now, she was incredibly nervous, as you would be, because we're game people.
Yes.
We don't meet people of the magnitude of Sigourney Weaver every week. And Sigourney Weaver could tell that. You could tell that she could tell that, and she was really, really nice to Kim to help get her a good interview.
And the extra bit is, I suppose, just that, Nath and I are not
How dare you?
We are not camera and sound people, but we've as a YouTube channel, we've learned those skills to some degree. We're using, very low budget equipment.
But then you're walking into a room with somebody who's worked with James Cameron and Ridley Scott.
Exactly.
And it's a little bit different.
And we were there to be the camera and sound people. So that, it's cheaper for everybody and so that we can get some PlayStation Access coverage and be there.
Can I tell you what I remember about this is that we were in the corridor outside waiting to go into the suite of the hotel or the apartment where we were going to be doing this interview, and we were like double, triple checking our equipment.
Yeah.
And I was going to be on sound,
Yes.
which basically means wearing a pair of headphones and looking at a piece of recording equipment and saying, if anything goes wrong, saying, oh my God, it's gone wrong, everyone. I'm sorry, can we do that bit again?
Yeah.
And we tested it and we saw that the day before we'd seen that the batteries were low. And we were like, that's fine, we'll put new batteries in.
Yeah.
And then we were outside and I said to you, out of the 3 battery bars, one of them with these new batteries had gone.
Yeah.
And you looked at it and you were like, but why is that?
That's impossible.
Why is this happening?
That simply can't happen.
What's going on? And we'd realised for some reason it looked like that this unit was draining batteries incredibly quickly.
It was draining new batteries. Like a whole battery would last like 10 minutes tops or something.
And we thought, we'll just stick some new batteries in, that'll fix it. And then we realised just before we went into the room, it's doing it to the new batteries as well.
Yes. So we had the issue of being not professional camera and sound people with equipment we didn't fully understand. Draining batteries. This is our one shot. You only get 10 minutes with Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
She's an A-list celebrity. And we are here. We've been sent by
around the world. By
Sega have brought us here. They've paid for our flights and for us to be there so we can meet Sigourney Weaver, so we can make this video or these videos.
That's what it's all about.
And the battery on the sound recorder is just draining. And I remember it was also one of the first times, I think it was the first time I've ever worked with like a proper A-list celebrity. So of course there's somebody there who's
a team.
And everyone's really lovely and which I was super impressed by, but they were like, they wanted to see what the frame, they wanted to see the frame, they wanted to see how Sigourney Weaver looked through the camera. They were doing her makeup. So there's this buzz. I'm trying to set up the camera whilst in the back of my mind is like, oh my God, the sound, what are we going to do about the sound? How long can we last? And Nate's obviously like just responsible for the sound and is having the same thoughts. It takes us ages to set up because I'm just looking at the sound recorder going like, we've missed something. We must have missed something.
I remember you being behind the camera off to my right. The sofa is right in front of me.
Yeah.
I'm knelt on the floor.
Yes.
Because of the way that we'd set up in front of Kim and Sigourney Weaver. And I have basically the sound recorder just in my hands.
Yeah.
And basically all I remember is the longest 10 minutes of my life.
Yeah.
Watching this thing flicker, and then go down one, flicker, and then go down to empty.
Yeah.
And then all the 10 minutes, me and you were looking at each other.
I can't think what movie this is like, but we're both, we would have been nervous anyway, but we're just sweating in front of Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver is doing her interview at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, just chatting with Kim, and Dave and I were just like, I would look up at him and I would just be like, is it one more?
He just keeps looking at me and shaking his head like,
Just imagine, it's ridiculous.
not happening.
There's something incredibly alien-like about this, right? You're in an incredibly stressful situation. All you could look at is a digital display of a thing that is.
It should have been making a noise.
Yeah.
Bleep, bleep, bleep,
and it is exactly that. And you're faced with the decision or I was awaiting the decision, which is when inevitably the sound dies.
Yeah.
Do we go, sorry everyone,
Sigourney,
the sound's died, let us just put some new batteries in, or do we just have to eat it and just go like, everything's fine, yep, we got that, great stuff, well, back off to England, I'm going home, yeah, oh my god, I can't believe it.
Oh, Kim, we're so sorry. And that was the thing, we weren't sure if it died,
Yeah.
would it
save
would
the
it
file?
lose that? Would we lose everything?
Oh, it was so stressful. The stress of it was insane.
But it was fine.
It was basically fine.
It turned out fine. It managed to last. It was only a short interview, like 10 minutes tops or something. But by the skin of our teeth, I think it died almost as soon as the interview ended.
We didn't survive leaving the room. I think later on we realised that Phantom Power is on. And that was...
But for some reason on this particular unit, if you want to know, Phantom Power drained batteries. Oh, if you were using a microphone that didn't require Phantom Power and you used Phantom Power, which we were doing, it would just like drain the battery super
A
fast.
bunch of people listening to this are like, what's Phantom Power?
Yeah, that's a real
not
thing.
Going into that now.
Phantom Power is the name of the short movie that we're one day going to make about this whole business.
So that was it, Sigourney Weaver. But the big takeaway was that
thinking
she was so lovely and nice.
Yeah, she really was.
And you I don't know. The big fear, obviously, with an A-list celebrity is that they might be just on when the camera is rolling. But she had to spend a good 5 minutes just talking to Kim whilst we were faffing about, panicking. And she had lots of time
Who
for
are
Kim.
these
and
milky idiots who don't know what they're doing?
It was really, really lovely.
Yeah, she was great.
Get the sound recorder in order, Nate, because I'm sick of your bullshit and we need this recorded, okay?
Oh, why was it me? Brilliant. Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks to Alien 3 for taking part in this podcast this week. And just to let you all know about what's been coming and what's coming up on the podcast, last week we had a newsletter, which is exciting because it's not yet been written, but it will have been written. Hopefully, Rob.
Yeah, it will.
Excellent. 2 days after today, which is Wednesday, we'll have our bonus episode on Alien vs. Predator. And then next week, we will be watching the aforementioned Alien Resurrection. If you're interested in getting any of those bonus episodes or that newsletter, you can become a member of our Patreon. And we do want to hear from you on any of the subjects we've mentioned today. Phantom Power, Alien 3, fandom. You can email us at redshirtcinemaclub@gmail.com. But until next week or Wednesday, if you're a member of the Patreon, we must say goodbye. Thank you to Rob and Dave for being with us today. Thank you to me, Nate, and goodbye, everybody. You've been listening to Red Shirt Cinema Club. If you're enjoying the podcast and would like to receive 2 exclusive episodes per month, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just check the link in the description. We'd also love to hear from you. Email us at redshirtcinemaclub@gmail.com or follow us on social media. We'll be back with another episode next Monday. See you then.